The development of social ecological models helps us to understand the dynamics between various personal and environmental influences and what effects these have on human development. These models in an educational setting help us to explore the interrelationship between a child's social settings and the school environment, suggesting that the combination of a child's personal characteristics, life experiences and dimensions determine their capabilities within the school and educational setting. Rothenbremer explains that in order to understand human development, a person's entire ecological system must be considered, in which the interaction between the person and the environment must be investigated. He illustrates the importance of context and how it plays a significant role on a child's development, using an ecological framework for human development. Rothenbretter's model is an expanding set of contextual structures composed of 5 social layers that support and guide a person's development. Each layer is a context that fits in with the next, so that influences are bidirectional between each layer, and the child and setting relationship are dynamic, changing and diverse. The contextual layers, according to Rothenbremer's model, start with the developing child in the middle and the microsystem, which is the layer that lays closest to the child. It is these structures in which the child has the closest direct contact. These environments have the greatest of impacts and influence on a child and their development, as they are the closest to the child. They are the settings that can provide the most nurturing and positive experiences, or they can provide the child with the most negative and damaging experiences. Additionally, it is the cultural processes that take place within these settings that determine the nature of the child's development. Psychologist Margaret Beale Spencer identified risk factors that exist in children's environments, all of which can lead to negative outcomes. However, protective factors do exist that can in fact offset these negative outcomes, such as one's intelligence, resilience, attractiveness, outgoing personality, having intelligent or wealthy parents, or an extended family or social network that is caring and compassionate. The next layer in Rothenbretter's model is the mesosystem, in which connections between the child's microsystems exist. An example is the interaction between the child's parents and teachers, and depending on how well matched the values and routines are will determine how well the child settles into the school environment. Students bring their own set of values and experiences to the classroom. When we consider refugee students that have had either severely interrupted or no schooling at all, they have little or no knowledge of school, making the adjustment quite difficult. These issues may lead to students sometimes being withdrawn, aggressive, unable to concentrate, hyperactive or anxious. Refugees are often subject to political contexts in the community and media portrayal that often leads to racism, citizenship difficulties and housing instability, which all affect inclusion. Brown suggests that despite these difficulties, most refugees are eager to learn, are grateful for an education and mostly defy the odds, becoming very successful in their schooling. Holroyd High School in Sydney's western suburbs contains a high number of students from refugee backgrounds. In 2013, they made up 60% of the students at Holroyd High, and the principal, Dorothy Hottendot, says that each year about 40% of their students go on to university. The next layer in Rothenbretter's model is referred to as the exosystem, and relates to the system in which the child is not a direct function but is nevertheless affected by it. Typical exosystems that influence children is the parent's workplace, community context, politics and industry. Rothenbrenner explains that if a nation provides opportunities for children to develop to the fullest, future prospects will be positive. However, a society that neglects the needs of a child faces eventual demise. Brenda and Norman discuss how children with physical disabilities in KwaZulu-Natal in Africa are negatively affected by their poor economy, as they do not have access to the essentials such as ramps and paved roads that they need in order to access educational settings. According to Ray, class is a strong predictor of educational success, as the education system is designed by the middle class to serve the middle class, and the assessment policies imposed by the government shapes how children see themselves as learners, even though they are primarily a performance indicator for teachers. According to the Australian Research Alliance for Children and Youth, 1 in 7 children, including Indigenous children in Australia, grow up in poverty. A child's ability to learn develops in their brain a long time before they start school, and those living in poverty are at a disadvantage. According to ARACY, the effects of poverty on children can be seen from the age of 2 through their language and behaviour. According to Dr. Cassandra Goldie from the Australian Council of Social Services, reducing poverty is a whole of community effort that must be addressed so that there is a collective responsibility to ensure fairness for all citizens. In Australia, charities and community welfare groups provide the most assistance to those affected by poverty. The macro system is the next layer in Bronfenbrenner's model and refers to the broad society of cultural context and the values and beliefs within these contexts that affect a child's development. A child that is born into Christianity, for instance, is bound to lead a moral way of life that the church implies. Growing up in a heterosexual society presents risk factors for homosexual children as they struggle to fit in. A major risk factor for these children is suicide, anxiety, and mental health issues. And although homosexuality is not a mental health issue, the struggles that homosexuals face tend to compromise their mental well-being. Homosexuals are often unable to express their identities and are repressed by society, resulting in feelings of shame and alienation, which are compounded by social and cultural factors. Risks that they share with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders. According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, suicide deaths of Indigenous Australians compared to non-Indigenous Australians is high. The figure is even higher in the Northern Territory. Australians who are attracted to the same sex have up to 14 times higher suicide attempts than their heterosexual peers. Suicide Prevention Australia cite a number of ways to help reduce the risk of suicide that must be delivered to those at risk through community programs. Beyond Blue is an organisation that delivers programs to children as young as those in early childhood settings. The most outer layer of Bronfenbrenner's model is known as the chronosystem and relates to time and how it affects the child's environment. Elements are either external, such as the death of a parent, or internal, such as the actual aging of the child. Whatever it is, a child's experiences are always changing, both in the home environment and at school as they change peer groups or transition to a new school. Teachers will benefit from knowing what is happening in a child's individual circumstances to guide their teaching or offer support. It is therefore clear that according to Bronfenbrenner's model, in order for teachers to understand their students, they must take into consideration their entire ecological system, as each system interacts with the other and depends on the contextual nature of the individual, producing an endless range of ever-changing circumstances for each and every person.
Created using Powtoon.